really a struggle.
They were, and I think part of one of the hardest things then was communication. I mean, I'd ask you how you felt about something, and if I could get one word out of you, I thought I was doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's just the way I was. I just, I don't know. I guess I didn't
Mm.
have an opinion at that age, or I just didn't feel I had anything to say. And a lot of times, if we were having a heated discussion, I'd always come back, you're right. I really have no excuse. You're right. So I didn't say anything. And
Mm.
that was difficult, the
Yeah,
communication in
right.
the early stage. That's for sure.
Mm.
And then I can remember one night, or more than one night. Well, there's some that I can't remember, but I was in Naval Reserve at the time, remember? And
Yeah.
we had weekly meetings or monthly meetings or whatever it was. But after the meeting, the boys would go out and have a beer or two or three or four or five or six, me.
Mm.
And I just got to the point where I couldn't stop.
Mm.
And I didn't really consider myself an alcoholic at that point, but once I started, I was having too
Mm.
good of a time and I didn't want to stop. Never called, never got in touch with you.
Mm.
Uh, just you were out there
I remember.
worrying.
I remember when you'd get home and you'd apologize. You'd say you were sorry, but then it was the same thing all over again. And I remember that one night. It was in the winter. There was such a terrible snowstorm, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you still weren't home. And I was so worried. I thought, is he off the road somewhere, or is this just another night of too many beers? And I remembered right then I had to make the choice to sit down, and I wrote a letter to you. And do you remember? I said, I really love you, but I just can't go on like this.
Yeah, that was the turning point.
Yeah.
That was really the turning point for us because, again, I couldn't argue with what you were saying. And
Mm.
I guess I really didn't know at that point how much it really affected you and our relationship.
Well, I think the thing was, it was pretty amazing to me. I think God was working right then in our lives, even though we didn't know Him yet,
That's true.
because we made that commitment. We said, well, you know what, marriage is so important. Divorce is not going to be an option for us. We got to figure this out.
Right, exactly. So because we did that, we got a hold of a counselor,
Yeah,
didn't
wasn't
we?
that funny? It was a Christian counselor.
Counselor.
We didn't even know
Didn't
it.
even know it. No, I know. And I think we might have been one of his quicker patients, if you remember correctly. What did it
Yeah,
take us? Like we were there for maybe 6 weeks or
right.
something like that. But
It was funny how
again,
God
we
was
knew.
working, how we didn't even know Him, but He was working. And remember how your parents tricked us into going to that Billy Graham movie?
Yes.
About salvation. We didn't even know
Oh,
what
yes.
salvation was. And they said, oh, would you like to go to the movies with us? We said, oh, sure.
Sure. Yeah. Be a fun night.
That was so amazing as I look back on it. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on. I
No.
remember the movie ended, and I remember standing up and feeling, they were having an altar call. Well, we didn't know
We
what
didn't
an
even know what
altar
it was,
call
did we?
was. But
No.
anyway, these people were down there, and I remember feeling this. It was like I had a hand in the middle of my back pushing me down there. I mean, I normally wouldn't go anywhere without you. And it was like, I'm looking and you're not coming with me. But I'm still going forward. And I get down there and I'm crying. Remember, I was so embarrassed. I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying. And I get down there and the woman didn't even have any tissues. And there I am. And she kept wanting to pray with me. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to say these words. I don't know what these words mean. And finally she goes, oh, can I just pray for you? And I said, okay. And she did. And I ended up wondering, what's that all about?
That's right. And I'm sitting up there and I'm thinking, I'm being manipulated. This whole movie was about bringing me down, trying to get me in the front.
We
And it
didn't
was
understand, did
we
we?
didn't understand at all. No.
But thank goodness for Cursillo.
That's right. Cursillo came into our life, which it was what, a 3-day retreat kind
Well,
of
that was your
weekend.
parents again. Your
Yeah.
parents knew something was wrong with
These
us,
guys.
and
Yeah.
they knew we needed some kind of help, and they had come to the Lord already,
That's
and
right.
fortunately, of course, we wanted to do what Mom and Dad said, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
we honored our mom and dad, right?
We
So
we were good kids, and we did what they said. But we went on Cursillo, and Cursillo for me, especially, was quite a weekend. And
I remember because I remember how different you were when you came home, and I thought, well, this is a good thing, but I'm not quite sure what's happened here, and you couldn't tell me anything. And then it was my turn to go, and I was terrified because I thought they were going to quiz me on the Bible. I didn't know one end of the Bible from the other.
that's right. Yeah. You seemed to be more scared than I was, but
Yeah.
I can remember I went, and certainly the Lord was there, and I think for me that was when He first started tugging on my heart, saying, there is something to me. You need to open up your eyes.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the big things that we learned on that weekend was the piety study in action, or prayer study in action, and that a three-legged stool can't stand with just one leg missing. So that's probably one of the bigger lessons that we learned
I
for
remember
weekend.
that.
And
Yep.
because of that weekend, that's when we started going to Calvary, right?
That's
It was
right. That was
after
the one thing we figured we need to find a church here.
That's right.
I mean, we were so blessed. Both of us came to the Lord on our weekends, and that was the beginning, really, of our faith journey.
That's right. And we started going to Calvary, and I can remember I talked to my mom, and I said, I talked to Mom, and I said, how do we know if it's the right place for us to be? And she says, get involved. And I said, what? She said, get involved. So I think the next weekend they were tearing the kitchen out, and I went down and helped tear the kitchen out and get ready for a new cabinets or whatever. And we were there for, 18 years?
Yeah.
18 years at Calvary.
That's where we had our first marriage study.
That's
And
right.
I was so young in the Lord. I remember, it was going along great. And then they got into that submission thing. Remember that? And I'm going, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah,
here.
that was a good part.
Yeah.
That was a real good part.
Oh, I remember I would say, well, I believe most of the Bible, but I don't think I can go in. I mean, I'm no doormat. I don't think I can buy that part. And it wasn't until quite a bit later that, I really learned that, my part in submitting was just to respect you as my husband and the head of the household. And your job was to love me as God loved the church. And that kind of put a different spin on it. I had a whole different understanding of that after that. But it took a while.
It did take a while. Oh, did you see the door in that house? That was beautiful.
I wonder
we
if we
could
could.
probably do
You
something
think
like
we
that
could?
at home. Yeah.
That would be nice. I'd
That
love
would
to do
be a
that.
good idea.
Make a little change.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember also at Calvary and all those years was the first year we kind of started singing together and playing and singing together. And we were, what were we doing? What would you call it? Like Christian folk music?
Kinda, yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
like that. And that's where we kind of got started and all that. And
Yeah.
those were
Looking
early
back,
years.
who would think that I was the one that knew how to play guitar? You taught yourself, and now you play rings around me.
That's true. Well, not being prideful or anything, but yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But you sing a
It's
lot.
true.
You sing a lot better than
It's
I do.
true.
So
Well, we make a good team, right, dear?
That's
we
right.
encourage each other.
that's right.
Oh.
So while we were there, remember that's when Allie came,
Yeah.
and she was.
Yeah, that was kind of like, the Lord changed my mourning into dancing because that infertility stuff was so hard. But when that little baby came, wow.
Yeah, she's something else.
Yeah, we learned a couple lessons in that one.
Yeah, we did. We learned quite a number of different things. But that was, I think, really the first time that we could see the Lord moving in our marriage and in our life together. It was my friends in Massachusetts.
Well, you remember Pep and Pam.
Oh, yeah, Pep and Pam.
were.
They were adopting the same time we were, but they started their process way later than we did. And we had to, they got their child, and it was like we were still waiting. And it's like, how come we've got to wait so much longer? And I think the lesson that we learned there is that God has a plan.
Right.
He has a plan for you, for your spouse, for your kids, for your family, and we just have to
Well,
be
he
patient.
picked out Allie for us. I
Oh,
mean, Kiki
absolute.
wasn't supposed to be our child. She was supposed to be their child. And
That's
he
right.
knew that Allie was going to be the one for us.
And it was hard. I found it hard because we both think we both did that we wanted to be happy for them, but it was hard when.
Dealing with that envy that jealousy
That's right.
was hard.
And at
And
the
you know
same
what?
time, too,
Yeah, I was thinking back, I was working with another librarian. Remember, we were sharing the job, and I was the young librarian. She was almost ready to retire, and she didn't like my ways very much, and
That's right.
I remember I'd come in midday because I had the afternoon in the library, and I always knew if she was angry with me. Do you remember she'd pick up her purse and leave and not say anything to me? And
Yeah.
then I went to the principal, and I was saying to her, I just don't know what to do about this. And she said, you've got to sit down and talk this out with her. You need to resolve this. And I'm praying about it and praying about it. And finally, the Lord gave me the words, and I asked her if she'd come and talk with me. And when we sat down and started talking out our hearts to each other, the reconciliation happened. And the thing was, I'm praying, Lord, would you just bring Allie now so that I don't have to deal with this woman? And The Lord knew I needed to know how to reconcile with somebody, you know.
That's right.
And then she ended up giving me the baby shower,
That's right.
remember?
Yeah. All that tough struggle, and she was the one that
Oh.
came through towards the end there. But after 18 years, we needed to think about something else, right?
Yeah. Well, here we had this house. Remember, our first house that we thought it was going to be our dream house. We built that salt box in Huntington. We had that beautiful view of Campbell Sump, and we thought, okay, we're here for life.
Yeah.
Well, God had a different plan, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
A very different plan
Yeah.
for us.
I mean, we're riding back and forth to Underhill to go to church because that's where our church community was.
Yep.
And finally, we were thinking, well, you know what?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be living in Underhill?
Yeah, because we were spending like 3 or 4 nights, days a week in Underhill, traveling from Huntington at night, and this was ridiculous. But the big difference for that house was that we now knew a little bit more about the Lord, and we were able to pray about our next move.
Right.
So we started praying for our new house in Underhill, and it was fun. That was another God moment.
Yeah.
What happened, because we ended up selling our house and put a deposit down on another house, and somebody came through with the cash. Remember, they came through with all the money to buy the house, and they said, "Sorry, Charlie," and they let us go. And
I
it's like,
know.
where do we go now?
And we're going, Lord,
do
we
we do?"
thought this was the house you wanted us
Yeah,
to have.
we thought it was perfect, but he had I guess a better place set for us
Yeah.
up in the hills in Underhill.
And the thing about that too, there's another little lesson in there because, worry crept in, anxiety crept in. Here we were praying to God, we were expecting Him to provide that home for us, and then when it didn't work out the way we thought it was going to, we started worrying. And I remember learning later that worry is actually a sin. Because
Yeah.
when we worry, we're like saying, God, we don't think you can
God
take care of
can't do it.
this.
That's right.
And He had it covered way better than we ever could.
That's right. That's great.
And then we finally moved, and then that's when Anna came,
That's right.
shortly after we got over to Underhill. Yeah.
That's right. And we got Anna.
I remember that was so hard because Allie was like 5 then, and I remember, meeting somebody for the first time, and you know how in conversation people always say, well, how many kids do you have? And I'd go, well, I have this one who's 5. And then I'd whip out the picture and go, oh, and I have this one, and she's not here yet, but
Right.
she'll be here eventually. And she was 6 months old when she came, and that was so cool that God orchestrated that, so she came on your mother's birthday.
That's
Wasn't
right.
that cool?
Yeah.
And we named her Anna Patricia.
And we named her Anna Patricia after Mom. That's right. That was and almost our whole church came to the airport
Yep.
to greet her when she got
Yep.
in. So
Yeah.
again, as the church community and people coming together was just an amazing thing.
Yeah. I
But-
talk with the moms, afterward. You know how moms get together and they'll talk about, how many hours they were in labor and all of that kind of thing. And I couldn't add too much to that conversation, but normally at the end I'd say, well, there is something about being able to pick the baby up at the airport.
That's right. So that did relieve us. So now Anna became part of our family, and it's just again amazing to think back
Yeah.
to how all that transpired and how God was involved with all of it, and we didn't
right.
hardly know it at the time.
Thinking about, after Anna came and we wondered, well, should we try and add a son to our family? And that was, again, one of those things that we were praying about it, and we thought that would be a good thing, but God had a different plan there, too.
Yeah, he sure did. But I remember Luke came to us,
Yeah,
and he was just he was an incredible guy.
he was so sweet.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
anybody behind us. I'm not driving too
Yeah.
straight here. But Luke came, and it was a respite care, and we thought maybe we might be able to adopt the whole. I remember all the girls and you were just
We loved that
just
little boy.
loved that little
Yeah.
boy. He was just amazing, and
Yeah.
he was.
But he had a line a mile long waiting to adopt him, I think.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, he sure did.
And then remember those 2 little girls? That was hard. That was so hard. 2 years and 4 years old, and the mom had left, and Dad couldn't cope, and social worker brought her to our house, and yeah, I just, that was a time when we really needed to pull together because I was pretty nervous about could I be what I needed to be to them. But then, remember the little one? She couldn't say my name, Maxine.
right.
She called me Magazine.
I
I'll
still
never
call you-
forget
I
her.
still call you that today. That always takes me back there.
I'll never forget that.
Magazine, but
Oh.
that's fair. Oh, we're kind of at a crossroads here.
Oh, let me
You wanna
check.
check the map and
Yep.
make sure we're on the right track?
Yep, I think we're pretty good.
Okay, good. Of course, we thought we were on the right track at that point in our
Yeah.
marriage and in our life, right? I mean, things seemed to be going well. We're in a new house, big house, and
Right.
great yard with a 2-acre pond and stuff, and we thought we were set for a while.
Mm.
And then I guess the path we were on was not God's path for us, and it took a rather drastic turn.
Well, you remember, I mean, you'd been working for Dad, and then when you got the opportunity to buy out the autoglass part of his job, of his business, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, that was,
you felt about that?
yeah, I felt pretty good about that I could do that and get the money to buy that out and have my own business. And I think pride got in there, and all of a sudden I've got the big office, the big wooden desk, and a brand new building. And I thought I was on top of the world at that point. But you know that proverb, pride goeth before a fall. Well, trust me, I guess we know that he does that, and that happens. And next thing we knew, we were in bankruptcy.
I know.
I had to close the business, and that was a hard time for you when I closed the business, right?
You know what? If it weren't for the fact that Jesus was part of our life then, I think that would have been a marriage breaker.
Yeah.
You know, you kept that so close to yourself, didn't really let me into that part of your life. And when you ever came home that day out of the blue and said, I had to close the business, I'm at home with the kids, we have no income. I mean, one moment we're fine, and the next minute we have no income.
Right.
And, you know, that was another thing I learned later on. I remember, you know, you said you were sorry, but somehow it didn't make me feel any better. And later on, do you remember when, I forget where we were, but we learned about the 5 languages of apology?
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's like, it's okay to say I'm sorry if you step on my foot, but, I mean, this was a bigger deal. There need to be more in that apology than what I received, you know? There needed to be some responsibility, you know, that you're telling me that you accept responsibility for the choice that you made. And then what are you going to do about it? You know,
Right.
that needed to be part of it. I needed to know, you know, and also just asking my forgiveness. I mean, taking that next step, not just I'm sorry, but you know what? Will you forgive me for
Right.
doing this?
Right. And taking ownership of it, I guess,
Yeah.
is another way to look at it.
But you know, God, you know, after that, we got through that sticky part, but then, you know, being committed and knowing God was going to help us through, you know, we had to be there for each other. I remember, I mean, that was such a time of, talk about learning humility. Do you remember? Our friends would bring groceries and leave them on the doorstep, and we got gifts of cash in the mail. And I mean, those months until you were employed again, and well, both of us were employed again, that was one of the hardest times of our life. And that God would provide, whoa,
Well, yeah.
that was quite the lesson, because we
Another
had
lesson well learned
nothing.
at that time, that's for sure. And again, our church community came through and provided for us and helped us and everything at that time. And that unemployment was really difficult
I
for
know it.
me. I had never in all my years had to apply for a job or fill out a resume or do anything like that. And I remember that first job I got the Sunday before. I was at the lowest point. I was shaken. Tears were in my eyes. I just was so nervous about doing that. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't go there tomorrow. I just can't do that job. I don't know enough about it.
But I told you could do it.
You told
can
me.
do it.
You encouraged me to hang in there and at least try. And, you know, it took me a while to understand that and do it, and it was hard that morning, but I did. I got up and I went and I tried. And it certainly was not the best job in the world I ever had. I learned a few things about how to manage people in sort of a negative way, if you will, but I'm glad
but
I'm glad you encouraged me to do it, because otherwise I would have just crashed.
I think that's another one of those things that, you know, though when you're in it, you can't really see what's happening. We knew that was a tough time. What we didn't know was that God was preparing you for your next job, which was going to be a better job, that
That's
he
right.
was giving you the skills you needed. And we still, even then, you know, we really, we weren't strong enough in our faith to totally trust that God had it covered, right?
Right, because I was still thinking that, you know, that my identity as a man comes from my job. It comes from what I do. and those sorts of things. I hadn't quite understood yet that it really comes from the Lord.
Yeah.
And it took
Yeah.
took a couple of jobs
Right.
to show
Right.
that to me.
Yeah, watch that sharp curve there, hon.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, where was I thinking at that time? And I was realizing I had to get recertified as a librarian because I hadn't been working. I'd been home with the girls, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And then it was kind of funny. Here I am. I'm supposed to be the organized person, right? I ended up with those 3 library jobs, and I get up in the morning and go, wait, which bag am I supposed to take today? Which library am I going to today, right?
Right.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we think our memory's bad now.
Yeah,
We still
right. I know.
It must have started way back then, I guess. But it's an interesting
Oh
thing,
dear.
But
Yeah,
but it was difficult, and
That's a hard time when we had to sell that Underhill house.
that's right.
That was a nice house.
That was a nice house. It was a nice big house and 4 bedrooms. And
Yep. But again, God provided the next home for us. I mean,
right.
granted, it was that little yellow house, but I wish I could have been as grateful as I needed to be back then. That
Yeah.
was, we moved on the 4th of July.
4th of July.
And they had that big celebration in town, and we got there. I remember Reg and Sylvia helped us move.
Yeah,
Remember?
that's right.
Yep. And I remember that night we were so exhausted, and up at the school were culminating the celebration with that dance. And remember that bass drum was going kaboom, kaboom, kaboom.
Shaking the whole house. I
Yeah,
think.
and then the clock on the church across the street, every
Every
hour
hour.
on the hour, it's gonging. And the store, remember, they had just put in their new alarm system. It kept going off. I'm going, Joe, we are so out of here. Do you remember?
That was
I
that
was
was
done.
the first night.
The first night, I know, and I was completely done.
That's right.
And I was not grateful, Somewhere after, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 months there, I remember I was grumbling, complaining, I didn't want to be there. I really needed to ask forgiveness of the Lord when it finally dawned on me, wait a minute, you are so fortunate to have a roof over your head
Yep.
at a time like this.
And we came to love that house.
I know it.
Yep. And I kept thinking when we first went there, it's like Binghamville. Where
Yeah.
the heck is Binghamville?
Yep.
I've never even heard of Binghamville. And here we are living downtown Binghamville.
And I think too, the whole idea again, God knows what's around the corner for us. We don't know that. And I wanted out of there that night. Well, God had our next home already, but it wasn't going to be prepared for 4 years. We needed to be there for 4 years.
Right.
And then he moved us up to the farmhouse, and in fixing that house, and for a small amount of money, he redeemed everything we lost in that bankruptcy.
That's right.
Everything.
Just within that house.
Yep.
And again, we were so fortunate just to have friends and have people that helped us to refurbish it and get
I know.
it fixed back up again. And
I think that's one of the things about when you think about our faith journey and the different churches we've been to, and think about the friends we've made all along the way. We still have the friends from our first church because we all have God in common.
That's right.
Jesus is the glue that is
Holds it
keeping us
all
all
together.
together, and they've been there for us through thick and thin, and hopefully we've been there for them too.
right. Oh, you hear what's on the radio? Let me turn it up.
God will make a way where there isn't any way.
Wow. Isn't his timing?
That's kind
We
of
never know about his
interesting.
timing. It's just, he definitely made a way for us in a number of different,
That's for
different
sure.
ways.
Mm. When our faith journey took us to Cambridge United Church, that was a big step for us because remember we'd been doing Christian folk music, but we didn't know anything about worshiping through
Right.
music. And Linda LaHaye was the worship leader there then, remember? And she was the one that taught us how to worship.
Right?
And then God, he amazes me how he orchestrated everything. Her faith journey was taking her up to Church of the Rock, and you stepped in as the worship leader there for the first time.
Yeah.
Remember that?
That
Jim
was-
Jasmine, remember Jim and Patty? We met them. Jim was playing with us, and we just valued their friendship so much, remember?
Yeah,
Yep.
I know. That was amazing.
And to this day, yes.
Yep.
Yep. And there again, that was such a good time. And then we came to another crisis,
Yeah. Yeah.
that drinking thing again.
Yeah, that old thing came back into our life, and being the worship leader.
Well, we
I
were
had
at
to
the
make a
Christmas
choice.
party. Remember, it was the Milton Bradley Christmas party
Yep,
because
the last Christmas before they closed Milton Bradley, and we were going to be out of work again. But and they had a big Christmas party, and I guess I took a little bit more alcohol than I should have.
Yeah,
that
actually,
night.
I don't think you took much, but you hadn't been drinking, and because we didn't drink and our
Right.
our friends didn't drink, so all was good until you got into
Situation
um,
where, yeah,
yeah, a worldly situation, and then you had maybe a beer or two, but it really made you into somebody that you're not.
yep. And it brought me to a decision because you said to me that if you're going to do that, there's no way I can worship with you on Sundays if you're hiding the secret. So if I remember correctly, when we came to church the following Sunday, I stood up in front of the whole congregation and confessed my addiction to alcohol.
And Pastor prayed for you, and you haven't had a drink
Haven't
since.
had a
And I
drink.
got to tell you, hon, I was so proud of you that day. That was such a hard thing to do.
It was difficult. That was what now? 24 years ago.
Yep.
Now.
And
Yeah.
then our faith journey took us up to Church of the Rock, and that's where we started learning about how important it was to be a part of a small group, remember?
Yeah, small group we got into a small group right off the bat when we got up there, and you were part of the worship teams in the beginning, and then through that process, what was his name, Randy, kind of got burnt out. I was playing with his team, and he said, "You want to take over?" And I thought, "Oh my goodness, this is so much different than Cambridge United and Calvary." I don't know, but I took over, and actually the Lord fulfilled one of your dreams,
I
didn't
know.
He, for you?
God does those sweet things for us that we never expect. I had that, I guess, kind of childish dream. I loved to sing, and I really wanted to sing on the stage, but I wasn't quite good enough. And what did God do? What is that scripture? Delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah,
And so, where do I end up? Singing on God's stage. What
That's
a better
right.
place to be, right?
that was great. Yeah, and we did a number of different studies. We did if
Yeah.
I remember correctly, we did. Was it Jim Cimbala on prayer? He was the pastor that started the Tabernacle Church
That's
in
right,
Brooklyn,
yeah.
New York, right?
Yep.
And here it was what was it? Just there was hardly a handful of people.
They had just a small group. I can't believe that testimony. That little handful of people praying that God would raise up a Bible-believing church in the worst part of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And now it's ministering to thousands of people. And later on, when we were in our small home group here in our area with Lynn and Steve and the Wilcoxes, Ron and Harriet were there, I think, and
Yeah.
Debbie Woodward. And remember, Steve came and one night and he said, Lynn and I have a vision to plant a church back in Cambridge. And you guys don't have to be a part of that if it's not part of your vision too.
Right.
But this is something we really feel we need to do. And we all were on board. We all were convicted right then and there. This is what God wanted to do. And so, we became a part of that.
Right. And at that time, we were doing other studies too.
Yeah.
We did a couple of different marriage studies and stuff.
Oh,
and that-
remember? That was a good one. That sacred marriage we did up at the Wilcoxes.
Yeah.
As I think back, I don't remember a whole lot, I have to admit. But one of the things I remember is it's all about the other guy.
That's right. Yeah, and I was always thinking it's 50-50. I'll do my
Yeah.
half, and you do your half, and this is
Right.
all going to work out for us, right?
Yep.
We learned from that study, it's all about the other person. You give 100%, and they give 100%, and you're left with
Yeah.
everything.
I still remember that fun assignment we had. Remember the one it was, how did
I
it
think
go?
I know the one you're thinking of.
How can you blow your mate's socks off this week? And we're all like going, okay, here we are in our older age. How are we going to do this? And I right now I don't remember what you did, but I remember how you've been doing it since then. I remember little things that you've done by, like when you get up in the morning and I'm being a lazy bones, and sometimes you'll just bring my coffee up to me. I mean, that is such a sweet thing to do. It may be small, but it really blesses. It blew my socks off when you did that. Yes.
Yeah, but you didn't have any socks on. Oh, well.
Well, you know what I
I
mean,
know
right,
what you mean.
dear?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I got it.
Another one that we did in our small home group was the 5 love languages. And that was, how many things have we learned that we find ourselves saying, I wish we had known that a long time ago.
That's
Those
right.
5 love languages, I mean, I didn't know that it made a difference, how you showed love to your spouse. I mean, that one way would speak louder than another. And then we found out, coincidentally, you and I both had the same love language, which was quality time together. You
Yeah.
could give me all the gifts in the world, but I wouldn't feel quite as loved as I do when we just, like this, are taking this trip together.
That's right.
And just, even
Yep.
just going for a drive, makes all the difference in the
Or
world.
putting flowers in the flower garden, or whatever it
Yep.
happens to be.
Yep,
Just
right.
kind of being together. And we
Right.
were fortunate because we had the same love language. I think it could be quite difficult if one is giving and one is
Yeah,
togetherness. It can be difficult to
Yeah.
figure those situations out or those things out. But
it's true. I mean, just think if the wife, if her love language is gifts, and it really touches her when her husband gives her gifts, and he is a guy of service, so he's fixing her car and being sure she's safe on the road, is a wonderful thing. But she's not feeling the love,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Another thing that happened, when we think back to that Jim Cymbala
Yeah.
teaching, that's really what started us going here at CCF on our early morning prayer, remember?
Right?
And I don't
Well,
know.
you started because I was still working at the
Right.
time, so I couldn't come.
Yeah.
But once I retired, then I started coming. But I don't know, those first few months or so, it was really difficult because I was not a prayer. If you
Yeah,
remember
I
correctly.
know you. I
It
know
was,
you.
It was difficult. I couldn't sit there for 2 hours in prayer. And if that wasn't bad enough, they asked to spend like 20 minutes in quiet time. And it's like, I got to be quiet for 20 minutes and just listen to see if God was going to talk to us. And it's like, I don't know if I can do this. But I did. I started right after I retired, and I guess you could say the rest is history.
Yep.
But now it's become such a part
Right.
of our week that it would be very, very difficult to miss it. And it also helped us to get started at home in
Right.
our
Right.
devotional prayer time at home.
I wouldn't tell this to anybody else but you, but do you remember we had to meet at 7 in the morning because Debbie had to go to work at 9? And I was such a whiny baby about that. I did not want to get up at 7 in the morning, remember?
Yeah.
And then finally I thought to myself, listen, if Debbie can get up at 7 in the morning and then go and do a whole day's work, shut your mouth and get there for 7 in the morning. And now I'm fine with it, right?
Yeah. Now you usually.
As long as I have that coffee, I'm
Right.
good.
But it's kind of great in the Zoom meetings. We can leave our PJs on our legs.
Well, that's true.
Because nobody's
That
going to
is
see our
very
legs.
true. That
That
is
works
very
out pretty
true.
well.
Yeah.
Stay comfortable
Yeah.
as we do that.
And look, here we are. I mean, we're almost there, right?
Oh, yeah. Are
Almost-
we? Can
I
you
think-
check the map and see?
Yeah, just
if
a
we're
couple
almost
more
there?
minutes here, I think, and we should be there.
Oh, good. We're getting close.
When I think about retirement, where we are now, this has been such a good season of our life. And yet, I think about that scripture, bear with one another in love. I mean, some of the things that come with aging, that problem we have
Well,
with,
some of those things happen.
that's just what I was going to say. We interrupt each other all the time. And I
Because
know.
I got to think about it. Because I got a thought up here, and I don't want to. I don't want to lose it.
I don't want to forget it. I know. I'm in the same place. And, I think when that happens, we just have to understand that about each other and love each other enough to let the other guy speak.
Right.
And you know what I thought? I could have one of those little sticky note pads by me.
Yeah.
So if you finish your thought, I could just jot a quick note here, and then maybe when you're done, I'd remember what it was I wanted to say to you.
If I know us, we got sticky notes all over
Yeah,
the
yeah,
place.
I know.
We
I
can
know.
carry little pads with us all the time, just in case.
Well, I think we've come to the place where we have to recognize it takes both of our heads to function as one complete person.
Right, that is true. Two of us, the two of us, we're
Right.
united
Right.
together, walking this path. But,
As I think back, I can see and just marvel at how God was working in our life, even when we didn't know Him.
that's right.
Even back then with the movie and Curcio and all of that, He had a plan for us, and we didn't always see it, but He had it, and He was faithful to carry it out in us. And I'm so grateful for that.
That's right.
And I'm so glad that we committed way back then to keep working on our marriage, because now we have all those sacred memories that we wouldn't have if
That's
we
right.
had called it quits way back then.
Right. And I remember that whole thing of sacred memories, just thinking that there's nobody else that can have those same exact memories
I know.
if something
Yep.
were to change. and so forth. But,
Gee, hun, I think we're here. Do you see it? There it
yeah,
is.
I think we are. That's great.
Oh,
I
I
think
love
it-
the ocean air, don't you?
Oh, I
Oh
certainly
my
do.
goodness.
And it's been quite a ride, hasn't
It
it?
sure has.
That we've done all that.
It sure has.
And you know, without a sense of humor, I don't know if we'd be where we are
Well,
today.
that was
right?
you. I do think it's begun to rub off on me after all these years, but it took a while. I thank God every day for your sense of humor.
Speaking of sense of humor, well, what the kids call them papa jokes, I guess.
Oh, right, right.
I got
oh,
one for you.
Oh, you got a papa joke?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Dad, I have a date for you. Dad, I have a date for Valentine's Day.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's February 14th.
Oh, papa joke.
All right, are you ready?
Well, you know
Let's
what?
do
I can't wait to see what God's in store for us, Lord, Joe, in the next few years. I'm so looking forward to this time we have together and this weekend that we're going to have.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be fun. Boy, I hope they got a Keurig machine and Green Mountain coffee. Or I'm going to be we're going to be in trouble.
I think God's got a good plan for these next couple of years, too, don't you?
I think he does.
Yeah.
Dream